Have you ever said something in the heat of the moment, only to regret it seconds later? Do you find yourself reacting to life rather than choosing your response? Are you tired of being ruled by your emotions in a world that constantly tests your patience? If so, this video was made for you. Welcome to a journey through the Stoic mind, a path that will teach you not only how to stay calm in chaos, but how to reclaim your power by mastering one simple truth. You are not your reaction. Before we dive in, make sure to subscribe and turn on notifications if you're serious about becoming a calmer, stronger, and more composed version of yourself. Let's begin. 1. The sacred space between stimulus and response. There's a moment, brief, often unnoticed, that determines everything. It lies right between what happens to you and how you choose to respond. That moment is your power. That pause is where your freedom lives. The Stoics understood that emotions aren't enemies. It's our uncontrolled reactions to them that cause harm. They taught that awareness is the gatekeeper of self-mastery. When you recognize that you're not required to immediately react to everything, you step into a new realm of control. Training yourself to pause, even for a second, allows you to ask, what am I feeling? Why? And does this reaction serve me or sabotage me? Mastering this moment is like forging a shield between your inner peace and the chaos of the world. Think about the last time you snapped in frustration or spiraled into anxiety. Did you consciously choose that reaction, or did it feel automatic? That's the invisible hinge of power, the moment before reaction. Viktor Frankl, a Holocaust survivor and psychiatrist, echoed Stoic wisdom when he said, between stimulus and response, there is a space. In that space is our power to choose our response. In our response lies our growth and our freedom. This quote isn't just poetic, it's practical. Most people live in a loop of reaction, mistaking it for decision-making. But without that pause, you're not responding. You're simply reenacting an emotional program written by habit, trauma, or conditioning. In the Stoic framework, this space is sacred. It's the crucible where wisdom is either forged or forfeited. When something triggers you, a harsh comment, a delay, a betrayal, you can either feed the fire or redirect the flame. Epictetus taught that it's not events that disturb us, but our judgments about them. That principle only becomes functional when you cultivate awareness in the gap between the event and the judgment. To pause is to interrupt the machinery of ego and emotion long enough to ask better questions. What does this mean? Is it true? Is it worth my peace? This doesn't mean suppressing your emotions. That would be psychological self-harm. Instead, it means owning them without being owned by them. Anger, sadness, and fear are natural human experiences. The Stoic path doesn't banish emotion, it integrates it through wisdom. Imagine your mind as a courtroom. When emotion bursts in like a passionate witness, the pause becomes the judge's gavel that calls the court to order. Without that gavel, the trial descends into chaos. The pause ensures fairness. It ensures that your response is aligned with your values, not your impulses. Developing this mental habit requires practice, but it's life-changing. Start small. The next time you feel irritated in traffic or disappointed in a conversation, notice the urge to react. Then breathe. Give yourself even one conscious breath before speaking or acting. That breath can change the trajectory of your day or your life. Over time, your nervous system learns to rely less on fight or flight and more on reflection. You stop being dragged around by every slight and start standing in your center. Ultimately, This space between stimulus and response is where character is built. It's where dignity resides. It's what separates a reactive person from a resilient one. In a world that demands quick reactions, click, post, rage, defend, choosing to pause is a radical act of strength. You don't have to be a prisoner of emotion, you can become its master. And that mastery doesn't come from brute force or denial, it comes from reverence for the quiet power of the pause. Protect that space. It is the birthplace of your highest self.
2. Detachment is strength, not indifference. Have you ever taken something personally, only to later realize it wasn't about you at all? Most of the time, people project their wounds, insecurities, and chaos onto others. The Stoics knew this and refused to carry burdens that weren't theirs. Detachment doesn't mean you stop caring, it means you stop absorbing. By emotionally detaching from insults, rudeness, or misunderstandings, you preserve your energy for things that truly matter. When someone acts out, pause and remind yourself, this is a reflection of them, not a definition of me. This one shift alone can save you from unnecessary stress and guide you toward emotional maturity. Too often, we walk around collecting arrows that were never meant for us. A stranger's bad attitude, a friend's silence, a coworker's critique, these events feel personal, but they rarely are. The Stoics understood this clearly. Marcus Aurelius wrote, "You always own the option of having no opinion." That might sound cold at first, but it's actually a doorway to freedom. Detachment is not apathy. It is the decision to stop allowing other people's emotional storms to drown your internal peace. When someone lashes out, the ego instinctively says, "They're attacking me." But in reality, people are usually reacting to their own pain. You just happen to be in the blast radius. A rude cashier may be dealing with grief. A jealous friend might be battling self-worth. The wise response is not to counterattack, but to remain grounded. This is the art of emotional detachment, not becoming cold or disconnected, but developing the clarity to distinguish what is yours to carry and what belongs to others. Practicing detachment doesn't mean ignoring reality. It means responding to it wisely. When you stop internalizing every glance, word, or reaction, you reclaim your mental space. Emotional boundaries are just as important as physical ones. Imagine walking through life with a sieve for a heart. Everything gets in. That's not compassion, that's chaos. Detachment is like installing a filter. You can still be present, kind, and engaged, but you no longer absorb every toxin thrown your way. Consider the emotional economy of your day. How much energy do you spend replaying slights in your mind? How often do you fixate on things you can't control? Other people's moods, perceptions, or judgments? Detachment invites you to redirect that energy. Instead of investing it in drama or defensiveness, you reinvest it into purpose, focus, and self-respect. Seneca said, "We suffer more in imagination than in reality." Emotional detachment turns down the volume on imagined suffering. Of course, detachment takes practice. It's easy to say, "Don't take it personally." It's much harder when criticism hits your insecurities or someone you love misjudges you. That's when Stoic discipline becomes essential. In those moments, remind yourself, this doesn't define me. This isn't about me. I am choosing peace over pride. Just as a martial artist deflects a blow rather than absorbing it, the emotionally detached person deflects drama through self-awareness. In the end, detachment is one of the most compassionate things you can do, not just for yourself, but for others. When you stop reacting to every trigger, you become a source of calm in a reactive world. You stop escalating conflict and start embodying resolution. You stop needing validation and start walking in self-respect. That's not indifference, that's true maturity. You're not cutting yourself off from life. You're simply choosing not to bleed every time someone throws a stone. That is strength.
3. Delay isn't weakness, it's wisdom. In a world obsessed with quick reactions, slowing down is revolutionary. In today's culture, speed is often equated with intelligence, dominance, or control. We celebrate fast thinkers, quick wit, and instant decision-making. But this obsession with urgency has a cost. We react before we reflect. We speak before we truly listen. We move before understanding the full situation. The Stoics saw this trap centuries ago. Marcus Aurelius wrote about the importance of pausing before action, understanding that true wisdom isn't found in reflex, but in restraint. Slowing down isn't laziness, it's a conscious act of power. It shows that you're not being pulled like a puppet by every impulse or emotion. You're choosing to rule yourself. Imagine how many conflicts would vanish if we simply waited a few seconds before replying. That space gives reason a chance to speak. Most arguments escalate not because of the core issue, but because of how quickly people respond. One person says something impulsively, the other replies defensively, and the cycle intensifies. But what if you gave it 5 seconds? 10. A deep breath can prevent a war. This isn't hypothetical. It's been studied in neuroscience and psychology. The human brain, when flooded with emotion, especially anger, operates from the amygdala, our primal fight or flight center. But just a short delay allows the prefrontal cortex, our reasoning mind, to catch up. That brief moment of stillness is where self-mastery lives. Stoicism teaches us to build that pause into our lives until it becomes second nature. Delaying your response isn't cowardice, it's composure in action. It's the decision to let reason lead instead of emotion. It takes real strength to hold your tongue, to stay silent when your ego wants to lash out. Our culture often mislabels this behavior as weak or submissive, but in truth, nothing requires more discipline than restraint. It's easy to scream, argue, or defend yourself impulsively. What's hard is staying calm when insulted. What's courageous is choosing stillness over vengeance. Every time you choose to delay your reaction, you are training your mind to lead rather than follow your emotions. You're showing that you value long-term peace over short-term satisfaction. The Stoics practiced the art of holding back, not to suppress emotion, but to refine it. Suppressing emotion is not the goal of Stoicism. In fact, suppression only leads to tension, internal dissonance, and eventual outbursts. What the Stoics taught was transformation. Emotions are not enemies, they are signals. But just like fire, they can warm or destroy. The Stoics believed in alchemy, not of metals, but of the soul. They took raw emotion, processed it through philosophy, and turned it into something useful. They delayed their responses so they could examine their emotions, understand their sources, and then act with clarity. This wasn't cold detachment. It was emotional intelligence centuries ahead of its time. When you wait, even just a moment, you allow your wiser self to enter the conversation. There are two voices within you, the reactive self and the reflective self. The reactive self is quick, hot, ego-driven. The reflective self is quiet, calm, principled. Every delay gives the reflective self a chance to guide the situation. That's why great leaders, therapists, and spiritual teachers often speak slowly. They're not slow because they're unsure. They're slow because they're thinking, because they're measured, because they know words can either heal or wound, and they don't take that lightly. Each second you take before acting is like unlocking a door for your wiser self to step through. What feels urgent in the moment often fades with time, and what remains is clarity. Emotions peak and then recede. That which felt like a crisis in the morning feels trivial by the evening. What seemed like an attack, a betrayal, or a personal insult turns out to be a misunderstanding, or even a blessing in disguise. The Stoics understood the flow of emotion in time. They knew that impulse clouds perception, and clarity is born in patience. When you delay, you give truth a chance to emerge. You give yourself the gift of perspective. And in that space, your actions become not just reactions, but responses crafted by virtue, purpose, and wisdom.
4. Expect imperfection, and you won't be surprised. One of the most powerful Stoic tools? Expect that people will fail. Not in a cynical or a misanthropic way, but in a realistic, grounded sense. People are going to be late. They'll break promises. They'll act out of fear, selfishness, or ignorance. Expecting perfection from anyone is setting yourself up for constant disappointment. The Stoics weren't naive idealists. They didn't walk through life hoping everyone would behave virtuously. Instead, they trained themselves to anticipate failure, not to become bitter, but to become prepared. It's a philosophical form of emotional insurance. By expecting less, you suffer less. And when someone actually does rise to virtue, it becomes a moment of joy, not an entitlement. People will be rude. They'll betray, disappoint, lie, and misunderstand, not because they are evil, but because they're human. That's the heart of it. We're not surrounded by villains. We're surrounded by flawed, confused, evolving humans, including ourselves. Most people are doing the best they can with what they have, even if that best hurts you. Seneca said, "You must know that such is the condition of human affairs, that by fearing pain we often fall into greater pain." When we expect people to be perfect, we trap ourselves. Their failure becomes our personal suffering. But when we accept that imperfection is the rule, not the exception, we step outside of that trap. We begin to meet people with more grace, and ourselves too. To be constantly surprised by human imperfection is to live in denial. If every time someone acts selfishly or irresponsibly, you feel shocked or betrayed, you're living in a fantasy world. Life becomes far less turbulent when you stop demanding it to be different than it is. Marcus Aurelius reminded himself daily, "Today I shall meet people who are meddling, ungrateful, arrogant, dishonest, jealous, and surly." He didn't write this with despair, but with calm preparation. His point wasn't to harden himself, but to become immovable, to see clearly and still stay kind. That's the Stoic challenge, not to deny that people fail, but to no longer be ruled by those failures. The Stoics accepted this truth and prepared for it, not with bitterness, but with resilience. This is where Stoicism becomes a powerful life philosophy. You don't armor yourself to block the world out. You armor yourself so that you can walk into it with open eyes and still stay centered. Stoic resilience is a quiet, calm confidence that says, "I know this might go wrong, and I'll be okay anyway." It's not about expecting the worst with dread. It's about meeting the worst with readiness. This approach gives you more energy, not less. You're no longer constantly drained by every letdown or disruption. You become less reactive, more grounded, and infinitely more peaceful. When you internalize the idea that people act based on their own pain and ignorance, you stop letting their chaos disrupt your calm. This is a life-changing mindset. When someone lashes out, instead of taking it personally, you start to wonder, what must they be going through? You stop responding with offense and start responding with understanding. That doesn't mean you allow disrespect or accept abuse. It means you stop amplifying the noise. Their chaos doesn't have to become yours. Epictetus said, "It's not what happens to you, but how you react to it that matters." Recognizing that people are often trapped in their own emotional storms allows you to choose serenity over drama. This mindset doesn't make you passive, it makes you unshakable. Some fear that accepting imperfection means lowering your standards or giving up, but the opposite is true. It means you stop wasting energy on wishing things were different and start using that energy to respond powerfully to reality.
You stop taking things personally and start living with a deeper sense of freedom. This isn't apathy, it's mastery. You still hold people accountable. You still seek justice and truth, but you do it from a place of calm detachment, not emotional chaos. You're not swayed by every storm. You're the anchor. You start expecting challenges, and instead of reacting emotionally, you respond like someone who's seen it all before. This is what Stoic maturity looks like: calm, prepared, and gracious. Life will test you. People will frustrate you. But if you've trained your mind to expect that, you don't panic, you perform. You meet betrayal with boundaries. You meet rudeness with poise. You meet lies with truth, not outrage. Over time, this becomes who you are, not because you're cold, but because you're wise. Not because you've given up, but because you've grown up. And in that space between expectation and experience, you find peace.
5. Control the inner world and you master the outer one. At the core of Stoicism lies one golden rule: focus only on what you can control. This is not merely a comforting mantra, it is a complete paradigm shift in how one perceives life. The world is filled with uncertainty, chaos, and change, but the Stoics taught that peace isn't found by taming the world, it's found by reigning in the mind. Epictetus said it clearly: some things are up to us, and some things are not. In a modern world driven by information overload and external pressures, this teaching remains a powerful compass. It means that in every moment, no matter how turbulent or unfair things seem, there is still one kingdom where your power is absolute: your inner world. And the moment you take full ownership of that realm, you become unshakable. You can't control the world. You can't control people, but you can control your thoughts, your beliefs, and your reactions. This may sound simplistic at first glance, but consider how many of our daily frustrations come from the illusion that we should be able to control the uncontrollable. We get angry when traffic makes us late. We feel betrayed when someone doesn't meet our expectations. But the Stoics urge us to pause. Did we ever truly have dominion over those things? What if instead of focusing on the driver who cut us off or the colleague who disappointed us, we focused on our response? That's where real power lives. Your thoughts are yours alone. Your interpretations, your beliefs, your narratives. These are the architects of your inner experience. And by deliberately shaping these, you shape your emotional reality. That's not a limitation, it's a liberation. At first, it might seem disempowering to admit you can't control other people or outcomes. But what if true freedom begins when you stop trying to? Imagine how much energy we waste on the impossible, convincing others to see the world our way, trying to be liked by everyone, stressing over whether we'll be successful. Now imagine redirecting all that energy inward into things that actually respond to your effort, your discipline, your mindset, your ethics. That is not giving up. That is breaking free. It's the liberation of stepping out of a cage we didn't even know we were in, a cage built of expectations and external validation. The door was never locked. We just hadn't looked inward for the key. When you stop trying to change what's outside of you and instead master what's inside, you stop being a victim of circumstance. You become something else entirely, the author of your own fate. Viktor Frankl, a Holocaust survivor and psychiatrist, echoed the Stoics when he said, "Everything can be taken from a man but one thing, the last of human freedoms, to choose one's attitude in any given set of circumstances. Whether you face poverty, heartbreak, injustice, or even death, your final defense, the citadel of the soul, remains untouched unless you surrender it."
This mindset doesn't mean you don't act to change your environment when possible. It means you act without attachment to the result, measuring success by effort and integrity, not outcomes. Build routines that sharpen this focus. Journal your thoughts, reflect on your values, start your day with intention. These practices are not abstract rituals, they are mental weightlifting. A morning reflection helps align your compass before the day scatters your attention. Journaling is how you become aware of what you believe and whether it still serves you. Reflection anchors your identity in timeless values, not fleeting moods or headlines. Intention setting puts your internal narrative in your own hands before the world tries to write it. These small, consistent acts become a fortress, brick by brick, around your inner clarity. Over time, they create a rhythm of self-command that spills into every action you take. Train your inner voice to speak wisdom when chaos knocks. Everyone has an inner dialogue, but few realize they can train it. Most people let their inner voice mimic fear, anger, or insecurity. But the Stoic trains that voice like a soldier trains for battle. When stress comes, the inner voice should say, "This is not unfamiliar, you've prepared for this." When insulted, the voice says, "You are not harmed unless you choose to be." When plans fall apart, it says, "You still control how you move forward." This voice doesn't suppress emotion, it interprets it wisely. It doesn't ignore the chaos, it navigates it with poise. And the more you develop that voice through study, contemplation, and mindful repetition, the more it becomes a permanent guide through life's storms. And every time you practice emotional control, you're not just surviving life, you're leading it. There's a vast difference between enduring life and leading it. Survival is reactive. Leadership is intentional. Each time you restrain a reactive impulse, anger, fear, jealousy, you reclaim command of yourself. Each time you rise above a petty emotion, you reinforce the sovereignty of reason over impulse. This is what Marcus Aurelius meant when he said, "You have power over your mind, not outside events. Realize this, and you will find strength." With each small victory over your lower self, you build a higher self. And from that elevated state, you don't just respond to life, you shape it. You become the calm in the storm, the steady hand on the wheel, the example others look to, not because you're perfect, but because you are principled.
In a world addicted to noise, calm is rare. In a world driven by impulse, composure is revolutionary. The Stoic path isn't about suppressing emotions, it's about mastering them. Every moment offers a choice. Will you react blindly, or will you respond with strength? Will you be controlled by the world, or will you control your mind? The journey to emotional mastery isn't easy, but it's worth it. If you found value in this message, remember to like, subscribe, and share it with someone who needs to hear it. Because in mastering your emotions, you're not just changing your life, you're changing the lives of everyone you touch. Stay strong, stay grounded, and never forget, your power begins with a pause.